Imagine a nation sitting on the world's largest oil reserves, yet plunged into chaos by clashing ideologies and superpower meddling. Welcome to the explosive saga of the US-Venezuela conflict, where black gold fuels not just engines, but wars of influence that have reshaped Latin America. It all started in the early 20th century, when American oil giants like Standard Oil descended on Venezuela, turning it into a petrostate paradise. By the 1920s, oil gushed from Lake Maracaibo, making Venezuela the top exporter to the US. But this wealth masked deep inequalities. Corrupt dictators like Juan Vicente Gómez pocketed fortunes while peasants starved. Fast forward to the 1950s. Democracy flickered briefly under Rómulo Betancourt, but US Cold War fears of communism led to interventions, propping up regimes to secure oil flows. Then came the 1970s oil boom. Venezuela nationalized its industry in 1976, joining OPEC and wielding petrodollars to fund social programs. But corruption ballooned, leading to the Caracazo riots in 1989, where thousands protested IMF-imposed austerity. Enter Hugo Chávez in 1992, a fiery lieutenant who attempted a coup, failed, but rose to power in 1998 on promises of Bolivarian socialism, vowing to end US dominance. His election marked the ideological rift. Chávez's anti-imperialist rhetoric clashed with Washington's free market mantra, setting the stage for decades of tension. But here's the eye-opener. Did you know that by 2000, Venezuela supplied 15% of US oil imports? Yet Chavez redirected profits to uplift the poor, building schools and clinics, while cozying up to Cuba and Iran, irking the Bush administration. What if I told you a failed coup in 2002 had US fingerprints? Declassified docs show Washington knew of the plot, and though denied, it fueled Chavez's paranoia, leading to oil strikes that crippled the economy. This historical backdrop isn't just backstory, it's the fuse that lit the modern conflict, blending greed, ideology, and geopolitical chess. As we dive deeper, you'll see how oil became a weapon, ideologies clashed like titans, and influence peddling turned neighbors into enemies. Stay tuned, because the twists are just beginning. Building on that turbulent history, let's zoom in on Hugo Chávez's rise, a charismatic leader who transformed Venezuela from a US ally into a defiant socialist beacon. But at what cost? Elected in 1998 amid economic despair, Chavez launched the Bolivarian Revolution, inspired by Simón Bolívar's dream of Latin American unity. He rewrote the Constitution, empowered the poor with misiones, social missions that slashed poverty by 50% using oil windfalls. But critics screamed authoritarianism as he packed courts and silenced media. During the 2000s oil boom, Venezuela's GDP soared. But so did corruption. Billions vanished into crony pockets. Chávez's anti-US stance peaked in 2006 when he called Bush the devil at the UN, smelling sulfur, a viral moment that hooked global audiences. Yet, ideology drove the divide. Chávez's 21st century socialism, mixing Marxism with nationalism, directly challenged US neoliberalism, especially after 9/11, when Washington eyed Latin leftists as threats. The 2002 coup attempt? Opposition leaders, backed by business elites and allegedly US intel, ousted Chavez for 47 hours before loyalists reinstated him. Declassified cables reveal US embassy meetings with plotters, though denied as support for democracy. This hardened Chavez, leading to PDVSA purges where he fired 18,000 oil workers, shifting control to loyalists but tanking production efficiency. Oil influence? Chavez used petro-diplomacy, offering cheap fuel to Caribbean nations via Petrocaribe, buying alliances while snubbing U.S. refineries adapted to Venezuelan heavy crude. By 2010, Venezuela aided Hezbollah, per reports, blending ideology with anti-Western alliances. As Cancer claimed Chavez in 2013, he handpicked Maduro, but the revolution's cracks, hyperinflation lurking, foretold doom. This era wasn't just politics. It was a high-stakes drama of heroes and villains, where oil greased the wheels of revolution, but ideology sparked the fires that still burn. Hold on, because next we uncover how that black gold became Venezuela's curse and America's obsession. Now let's plunge into the heart of the conflict oil, the viscous lifeline that turned Venezuela into a global prize and a national nightmare. With proven reserves of 300 billion barrels, the world's largest, Venezuela's Orinoco Belt holds more oil than Saudi Arabia. But it's heavy, tar-like crude, needing special refining, which U.S. Gulf Coast plants were built for. In the 1990s, Venezuela pumped 3.5 million barrels daily. But by 2025, sanctions and mismanagement slashed it to under 800,000, a 77% drop, starving the economy of 99% of its export revenue. U.S. interests? From the 1920s, companies like Exxon dominated, but Chavez's 2007 nationalizations forced them out, seizing assets worth billions, prompting arbitration suits still unresolved. Ideology intertwined. Washington's fear of resource nationalism saw oil as a tool to counter leftism. Trump-era sanctions from 2017 blocked PDVSA from U.S. markets, costing Venezuela $130 billion per estimates, exacerbating the crisis where 96% lived in poverty by 2024. But eye-catching twist, Russia and China filled the void. Rosneft loaned $17 billion, taking oil as repayment, while Huawei built surveillance tech, amplifying Beijing's influence. Did oil drive the 2026 intervention? On January 3rd, U.S. forces captured Maduro, with Trump citing narco-trafficking but admitting oil access. Now, American firms eye revival, potentially boosting global supply by 2 million barrels daily, crashing prices but securing U.S. energy independence. Yet, environmental horrors. Spills in Lake Maracaibo poison fisheries, and extraction fuels climate change. Influence? Venezuela's oil bought friends. Iran sent tankers defying sanctions in 2020, a bold anti-US statement. This isn't just economics. It's a thriller where oil slicks the path to power struggles. Shifting gears from oil's greasy grip, we confront the ideological battlefield where US capitalism squared off against Venezuelan socialism, sparking a Cold War in the tropics. At its core, the conflict pits free market democracy against state-controlled equity. Chavez's vision of participatory democracy empowered communes, but Washington labeled it authoritarian, fearing a domino effect in Latin America. Stunning stat. Under Chavez, inequality dropped from a Gini coefficient of 0.47 to 0.39, lifting millions, but at the price of press freedom. Over 200 media outlets shuttered by 2012. U.S. response? Funding opposition via NED, with $100 million poured in since 2000, branded as democracy promotion, but decried as meddling. The 2019 Guaido recognition? Trump backed the assembly leader as interim president, isolating Maduro, but it backfired as Maduro clung on with military loyalty. Oil's role in ideology. PDVSA profits funded social programs, but sanctions aimed to starve the regime, worsening hunger where 7 million fled by 2025. Conspiracy alert. Leaked docs suggest U.S. PSYOPs amplified protests, like 2017's Guarimbas, that killed 120. blending genuine dissent with orchestrated chaos. Maduro's retort? Accusing the US of hybrid warfare, echoing Russian tactics. Influence spread. Venezuela's ALBA alliance challenged OAS, drawing in Bolivia and Ecuador, diluting US hegemony. By 2026, post-intervention, ideological victory claims ring hollow. New puppet leaders promise markets, but corruption lingers. This clash isn't abstract. It's a riveting narrative of David versus Goliath, where ideas weaponize economies, captivating with underdog tales and superpower schemes. Brace for the sanctions saga ahead, where economic nooses tighten the drama. As ideologies collided, the US unleashed its economic arsenal, sanctions that strangled Venezuela, blending punishment with strategy in this high-stakes geopolitical thriller. Starting lightly under Obama in 2015, targeting officials for rights abuses, they exploded under Trump in 2017, banning debt dealings and escalating to oil embargoes in 2019, effectively blockading PDVSA. Mind-blowing impact. A 2020 study estimated sanctions caused 40,000 excess deaths from denied medicine and food, turning a crisis into catastrophe. Hyperinflation hit 1 million% in 2018, rendering bolivars worthless. Yet, Maduro blamed imperialist aggression, rallying supporters. Biden eased some in 2023 for oil licenses amid Ukraine energy crunches, but reimposed in 2024 after disputed elections, showing sanctions as flexible tools for influence. Oil nexus? Bans forced Venezuela to sell at discounts to India and China, losing $30 billion yearly, while US refineries suffered shortages. Shocking bypass. Ghost tankers with switched flags evaded trackers, a cat-and-mouse game involving Iranian fleets in 2020. Ideological angle. Sanctions aimed to topple socialism, but bolstered anti-Yankee sentiment, with Maduro's survival mocking US power. By 2025, debt defaulted at $150 billion, but Russia forgave loans for military bases. The 2026 strike? Sanctions paved the way, weakening defenses for the Maduro capture. This isn't dry policy. It's a pulse-pounding account of sieges, smuggling, and survival, hooking viewers with tales of resilience amid ruin. To make this visual-friendly, picture vast oil fields under sunset skies, bustling ports with tankers docking, diplomatic handshakes at international summits, and economic graphs showing rising and falling trends, avoiding any depictions of hardship or conflict, focusing instead on infrastructure like refineries glowing at night, currency, exchanges and modern banks, and global maps highlighting trade routes. Extend this by exploring how sanctions reshaped daily commerce. Markets shifted to barter systems, innovative local businesses emerged using alternative currencies, and international partnerships bloomed with colorful flags waving at trade fairs. Visualize cargo ships sailing calm seas, business leaders in suits discussing deals over coffee, and digital screens displaying stock market fluctuations in bright, optimistic hues. Delve deeper into the creative evasions, like underground economies thriving with artisanal goods, community gardens providing sustenance, and tech startups developing apps for resource sharing, all illustrated with vibrant, positive imagery of people collaborating in sunny plazas, engineers tinkering with solar panels, and entrepreneurs pitching ideas in sleek conference rooms. This extension highlights resilience, showing how adversity sparked invention, with scenes of inventors in labs, farmers harvesting crops under blue skies, and families enjoying home-cooked meals from local produce, emphasizing hope and ingenuity over struggle. With Chávez's shadow looming, Nicolás Maduro took the helm in 2013, steering Venezuela deeper into crisis while defying US pressure in a saga of survival and suppression. A former bus driver and union leader, Maduro lacked Chávez's charisma, but doubled down on socialism, winning a razor-thin 2013 election amid fraud claims. Jaw-dropping decline. GDP shrank 75% by 2020, the worst peacetime collapse ever, with oil output plummeting due to corruption. PDVSA became a slush fund, siphoning $300 billion per probes. U.S. relations? Expelled diplomats in 2013, accusing plots, while Trump labeled Venezuela a narco state in 2020, indicting Maduro for trafficking. The 2017 Assembly rewrite? Maduro created a superbody bypassing opposition, sparking protests killing 160, with U.S. sanctions following. Influence games. Maduro courted Russia for S-300 missiles and Wagner mercenaries, countering U.S. encirclement. Oil's tragedy. Despite reserves, gas shortages plagued citizens by 2024, forcing black market buys. Ideological steadfastness. Chavismo evolved into survivalism, with clap food boxes controlling loyalty. The 2024 election farce? Maduro claimed victory amid 80% opposition support for Gonzalez, leading to arrests and Biden's non-recognition. Climax. January 2026. U.S. raid captured him in Caracas, ending his rule but igniting debates. Was it liberation or invasion? This era captivates with underdog defiance, betrayals, and a dictator's fall, seamlessly leading to foreign powers' shadowy roles. For image generation ease, rephrase to focus on leadership portraits in formal settings, like Maduro speaking at podiums with national flags, economic charts in boardrooms, and diplomatic meetings with handshakes under chandeliers, steering clear of any unrest, instead showing organized rallies with waving banners, military parades with polished vehicles, and fuel stations in operation during daylight. Extend by detailing Maduro's policy innovations. Community programs building parks and schools, visualized as children playing in green spaces. Architects drafting blueprints, and workers constructing buildings with cranes against clear skies. Explore international alliances through summits, with leaders toasting at banquets, maps of missile systems as technical diagrams, and mercenary training as strategic simulations in fields. Highlight oil management with engineers monitoring pipelines, gas pumps filling cars in orderly lines, and ideological events like book fairs promoting Chavismo literature. The election scenes become ballot boxes in voting centers, supporters cheering peacefully, and post-event discussions in cafes. The capture moment shifts to legal proceedings in courtrooms, debates in panel rooms with suited experts, and transitional planning in offices with whiteboards full of positive strategies, all in neutral, professional visuals. Beyond bilateral brawls, foreign actors like Russia, China, and Iran amplified US-Venezuela tensions, turning it into a proxy battleground for global influence. Russia, under Putin, loaned $16 billion since 2006, taking oil equity and deploying troops in 2019 to prop Maduro against Guaido. Joint military drills in 2022 mocked Monroe Doctrine, with Rosneft evading sanctions by rebranding Venezuelan crude. China invested $60 billion in infrastructure for oil deals, building refineries, but facing defaults by 2025, Huawei's 5G network enabled surveillance, echoing Orwellian control. Iran defied US by sending gasoline in 2020 amid shortages, a PR coup for anti-hegemony access. Ideology fused, these autocracies shared anti-Western views, countering US democracy push. Oil pivot. Non-Western buyers absorbed 90% of exports by 2024, diluting sanctions. Covert twist. Cuban intel trained Venezuelan security, suppressing dissent, while Turkish gold smuggling funded the regime. US countermeasures backed Colombia's border buildup, fearing spillover. The 2026 intervention disrupted this fabulous five, with Trump citing threat reduction, but risks vacuum for cartels. This international web hooks with espionage vibes, alliances, and betrayals, flowing into the human toll. To align with image policies, emphasize cooperative scenes, Putin and Maduro shaking hands at conferences, oil tankers at ports with Russian flags, military exercises as formation marches on open fields, refineries under construction with Chinese cranes, Huawei tech demos in modern labs, Iranian ships docking peacefully, ideological forums with panel discussions, buyer meetings in trade halls, Cuban training as classroom sessions, Turkish deals as market exchanges, U.S. support as border meetings with maps, and intervention as diplomatic resolutions in meeting rooms. Extend with detailed partnerships, Russian loans visualized as signed documents, and infrastructure projects like bridges, Chinese investments in high-speed trains and solar farms shown with workers installing panels, Iranian fuel deliveries as convoys on highways, Cuban collaborations in healthcare clinics with doctors consulting, Turkish gold trades in jewelry workshops, Colombian borders with joint patrols in uniforms, and post-intervention rebuilding with aid packages arriving at airports, all in uplifting, collaborative imagery without tension. Amid power plays, the human cost of the US-Venezuela rift paints a heartbreaking picture, with millions suffering in a humanitarian meltdown that demands attention. By 2025, 7.7 million fled, the largest exodus outside war, doctors, engineers gone, leaving ghost towns. Child malnutrition hit 30%, with hospitals lacking 80% of supplies due to sanctions blocking imports. Yet, government graft diverted aid. 2020 scandals saw clap boxes resold at markups. Migration waves. To Colombia, 2 million strained resources, sparking xenophobia. To US, asylum claims surged 500%. Ideology's victims. Opposition activists tortured in Helicoide prison, per UN reports of 15,000 arbitrary detentions. Oil irony. While elites flew private jets, citizens queued for fuel. Survivor stories. A Caracas mother walking to Brazil for medicine, or Miami exiles remitting $4 billion yearly. US aid, $1.2 billion since 2017, but blocked from Maduro, fueling accusations of weaponized help. Post-2026, hopes for relief, but transitional chaos looms. This segment grips with personal tragedies, empathy hooks, transitioning to recent fireworks. For safe image creation, reframe to resilient communities, families packing for new opportunities abroad, professionals starting businesses in host countries, children in school programs overseas, hospitals receiving international aid shipments, aid boxes distributed at community centers, migration routes as scenic journeys, asylum processes in welcoming offices, prison reforms as policy meetings, fuel queues as organized distributions, survivor tales as family portraits in new homes, remittances as bank transfers on screens, U.S. aid arrivals at ports, and post-relief planning and group discussions. Extend by showcasing recovery efforts, NGO volunteers building homes, educational initiatives with teachers in classrooms, health campaigns with mobile clinics, economic revival through small farms and markets, cultural exchanges preserving heritage, international support concerts raising funds, and future visions of bustling cities with renewed energy, all depicted in positive, hopeful visuals like smiling faces, green landscapes, and collaborative work environments. Culminating in 2026's bombshell, recent escalations saw U.S. military might end the standoff, reshaping the conflict's narrative with shock and awe. December 2025. U.S. seized a Venezuelan tanker, prompting Trump's total quarantine threat. Explosive January 3rd raid. Helicopters stormed Caracas, capturing Maduro in hours. Official line: narco-trafficking justice, but oil access admitted. Backlash. Protests in Latin America decried imperialism, while allies like Brazil stayed neutral. Ideology shift. Interim council promises elections, but U.S. influence evident in oil talks. Leaked plans. American firms to invest $10 billion reviving fields, potentially adding 1 million barrels daily. Sanctions linger. OFAC maintains blocks until conditions met, like prisoner releases. Geopolitical ripple. Russia condemns pulling assets. China negotiates debts. Maduro's Miami trial set for March, with cartel links exposed. This fresh drama captivates with real-time twists, leading to future visions. To facilitate image gen policies, portray escalations neutrally. Tanker inspections at sea with crews cooperating. Quarantine announcements at press conferences. Raid as coordinated operations with vehicles on streets. Backlash discussions in forums. Neutral stances at diplomatic tables. Council meetings with charts. Oil investments as contract signings. Sanction adjustments in offices. Ripples through map animations. Debt talks in boardrooms. And trials in court sketches. Extend with aftermath details. Reconstruction teams surveying sites. Election preparations with ballot designs. U.S. influence in advisory sessions. Field revivals with engineers at rigs. Prisoner releases as family reunions. Russian asset withdrawals as plane departures. Chinese negotiations over tea. Cartel exposures in investigative reports. And ongoing dialogues fostering peace. All in calm, professional settings like sunny offices, organized events, and symbolic handshakes. Looking ahead, the U.S.-Venezuela saga offers lessons in ideology, oil, and influence, pondering a post-conflict era fraught with opportunities and pitfalls. With Maduro gone, reconstruction beckons. U.S. pledges $5 billion aid, but strings attached. Market reforms to attract investment. Potential boom. Oil output could triple by 2030, easing global prices, but environmental risks mount with fracking plans. Ideological reconciliation. Bridging Chavistas and opposition key to stability, lest civil strife reignites. Influence battle. Countering Chinese loans, Russia arms, U.S. aims hemispheric reset. Hook. What if democracy flourishes, or another strongman rises? Worldwide implications. Sanctions efficacy questioned, military interventions debated. Venezuela's revival could stem migration, boosting regional economies. If this video helped you, make sure to like it. It really supports the channel. Subscribe for more videos like this, and share it with someone who'd benefit. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.